Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Now today you'll be thinking, when Iceberg did this it was more entertaining, and that's a horrid London accent, you're an American. And you're absolutely right, on both accounts. But as an American I have national pride to uphold by crushing some plucky Brits with budget PC hardware. First, a brief explanation of American sentiment towards the crown as borrowed from Mr. Devin Stone, aka LegalEagle.
The US doesn't have to swear allegiance to the crown because we're dope and we do dope things.
So then, let's do some dope things. At this point, if you haven't, go watch the Iceberg and RandomGaminginHD build-off that I wasn't invited to. I'll be following their rules. £200 budget, which in Freedom currency is about $255. Only bespoke builds, so no stuffing a GPU into a workstation and calling it good. And the price was only for the tower. Peripherals and operating systems were not included in the build cost. Starting with the tail end of our shopping list and possibly the single worst component to buy last, we have the power supply, a 600 watt EVGA W series that, even at $27, is unquestionably dumpster tier. Except it's not the PSU I used, because this one was kicked around in transit and died, so after a refund and some scouring of Marketplace, this is the actual PSU, a fully modular Corsair RM750 at a bargain price of $30. Which is exceptional because typically cheap PSUs are more like ignition sources than power supplies, but this one is very much not that. Storage was the penultimate purchase, and oof, this one required going to AliExpress for a somewhat usable, maybe 512 gig SSD by X-ray disk. There's not much to say about this other than it's a DRAM-less PCIe 3.0 drive that cost $26, arrived fairly well packaged, appears to truly be 512 gigabytes, and comes in some extremely confidence-inspiring packaging. Housing the whole build was this second-hand Cooler Master case picked up locally for $25. It is completely unremarkable in every way, apart from one. It has semi-captive screws holding the side panels on, a feature so amazing that it alone places this case into the god tier for budget builds. From the case then we get to the real fun of the system, and probably the most absurd deal of all. Inside this box is the whole system core, an MSI X299 motherboard, 8-core i7-7820X, 16 gigs of dual-channel G.Skill 2400 MHz DDR4, and some Noctua tower cooler, all of which was picked up for $135, delivered to the door, and should deliver some exceptional performance while also providing a meaningful, sort of, upgrade path. The first and most important purchase was this spectacular find, a Sapphire Pulse RX 5500 XT in its 8GB variant for the tear-inducing low price of $40. Because it's a Sapphire and because tuning is so easy, I did take some liberties with the clocks and voltages, running it with the figures on screen. If you're following along, that is a total build price of $256, a few pennies over our budget. But as an American, I did approach it in a totally American way, making money magically appear. So now that you've seen the hardware, let's roll a quick build montage and get to the benchmarks to find out if this thing games. The first benchmark, Fortnite, was unofficial and never counted for head-to-head, which is a lucky break for the unknowing competitors across the pond. Our 255 Freedom Money machine demolished both Brits using DX12 competitive settings, with a margin of victory so impressive that our 1% lows exceed Iceberg's averages. Things are already looking good for the black box of American supremacy. Moving on then to the official benchmarks, the first one run here was Forza Horizon 5, a game typically extremely charitable to builds like this, using 1080p and the high preset. Under these conditions, the GPU is very much the limiting factor for all three builds, but the game looks fantastic, and ours still posts the most impressive average and 1% low figures. Heading over to Cyberpunk 2077 using 1080p in the low preset, but without FSR turned on for some reason, the patriotic build comes through again with decisive victories in both average frame rate and lows, with the minimum frame rate on the Gravy Seal build creeping up on RGNHD's average. The experience also gets dramatically better with little visual quality loss if FSR is enabled, so I highly recommend doing that on a GPU of this tier. Red Dead Redemption 2 is the first game I'm wishing had not been included. Using RGNHD's preferred settings from Digital Foundry, the average on the Colonial build was the undisputed best, but for some goofy reason the minimum was in the gutter and stayed there no matter how many times the benchmark was run. Whether this was an issue of memory speeds and/or memory bandwidth, or a lack of L3 cache on the CPU, I really couldn't say. But being salty and refusing to accept defeat, I'm chalking this one up to the notorious RDR2 memory leak issue. Cinebench R23 then was another case of a Pyrrhic victory for the Massachusetts Bay budget banger, with our 8-core Skylake powerhouse running away from Iceberg's aging Haswell 12-core, and smoking RGNHD's Zen 2 quad-core and multi-thread, but narrowly missing out on the clean sweep and single thread. In true American form though, I do have to protest that I could have easily won this, as the 7820X is a phenomenal overclocker that I just got lazy with and left at stock clocks. And finally, 3D Mark Time Spy, where we get back to winning ways. Overall scores are in blue, GPU scores are in red, and CPU scores are in white, which mine eyes doth tell me represent the good old stars and stripes going 3 for 3 against the competition. Overall, if I'm being generous, I'd give this a 4 out of 10 on repeatability, but with X299 prices continuing to decline, and the general dislike of cards like the 5500 XT, that rating could climb over the next few months. But in the end, I didn't really care about repeatability. This build was made for a purpose. You join me now on a fantastic upper Midwestern country highway, which is a weird thing to say because normally they're terrible. I've got a PC in the back that we've just been looking at the benchmarks for. You've been listening to a voiceover from future me, and I am now on this rather gloomy day going to see if I can do some turtle hunting with our PC. An elusive turtle. All right, and on a gloomy-ass upper Midwestern spring day, I have succeeded in turtle hunting like I was hoping to, finding Mr. Elusive Turtle 16, streamer friend of mine, and on this build, co-collaborator. So why don't you explain what you contributed to this and what it's going to be used for?
Well, Rev, what I contributed to this build was...
Quick point of clarification here from the edit. While Mr. Turtle did assist me in finding all of the parts and sending me the links to them, all of them were purchased with my own money out of pocket from people that we did not know, whether it be on Facebook Marketplace or Reddit or even just random deals on AliExpress. So I just wanted to clear that up.
Was the power supply, the case, the graphics card, and I mean, this is kind of a team effort on the SSD. As you were looking on AliExpress, I sent you the link for it through Facebook. And you're like, yeah, let's shoot for it. Let's go for it. You know, it's not awful.
I mean, it was kind of a joke, but what was the worst that could happen, right?
A fire.
Okay, well, maybe a fire, yeah. But it does work, so there is that.
And it is a true 512 gigabyte SSD.
Yeah, I was not sure on that until I installed some games and then got up to about 440 gigabytes before I really wanted to push it. So it's at least a 480 gig, definitely looks like
it will at least hold Fortnite.
Yeah.
You know.
With the high-res textures.
Oh, yeah, great. For those of you who don't know what's going on, this is actually going to be my new streaming rig on loan just to kind of see how it will do. That may be. However, we did find a solution for that, and that would be the Quadro T400 4GB model. Now, this card right here is on the Turing architecture. However, it has the Volta encoder.
So the plan here is to offload the encode to the T400, correct? And take it off the 5500?
So we're going to take the encoding of the stream and the processing of my cameras, because when I had my GTX 1660 Super running my cameras, they kind of were GPU accelerated. So they would take up my bandwidth. I actually had artifacting in my cameras. I had dropped frames. My game looked beautiful, but the cams did not. It could not correlate between the camera and the game. It's pretty much going to take the stream from the 5500 XT being the encoder, lighting it up in order to keep the frames that it's going to have while gaming. It theoretically shouldn't lose any frames, and if anything, should actually have a cleaner encode than most of the other touring cards.
All right, so where can everyone catch you then on your next stream, which should be this coming Easter weekend?
Yeah, it should be Saturday night, right before Easter. I'm hoping to have my first stream. Really depends on my kids, but it should be on Twitch, Elusive Turtle 16, streaming Saturday night, March 30th. Yeah, March 30th if this video gets up in time.
I would know nothing about delays in editing.
Nope, no, none at all.
If all goes well and YouTube lets me, I will include a link to that stream in the comments here below. So check that out. Go catch his stream. It should be awesome. Hopefully the computer doesn't start on fire and performs well. With that, thank you all for watching, and we'll see you all in the next one.